Hi there, BookTube. My name is Nathan, and I am the Rambling Reviewer, so called because I tend to ramble about things. Uh, just kind of go on and on sometimes. It's been a while. I wanted to come back and make a quick video. I hope we want to keep this one quick. Just kind of talk about what I've read recently and what I'm currently reading. This is all the books I've read in 2024, and my 2024 so far has been decent. I've not really had any structured reading, but I've managed to prevent myself from going off on long uh, periods of not reading, which unfortunately for me does happen fairly frequently due to issues with anxiety and depression and possibly ADHD. I don't know. It's something that I know is a recurring problem with my reading life, and luckily so far that really hasn't happened. There's definitely been books that I started reading, a lot of them actually, that I didn't finish, and there have been like periods of like a week or two where I wasn't reading, but I haven't hit a point where it's like, okay, it's been a month and I haven't picked up a book, and I feel pretty grateful for that. And especially recently, it's been that I've been reading every day, which is really more when I do get into my spurts of good reading, what I want, what I hope to achieve, that I'm reading every day, that I'm at least working through stuff I've got every day, and I'm not just half-heartedly also that I'm also not just half-heartedly kind of throwing books away to read new things. That's a big problem with me. Uh, Again, possibly undiagnosed ADHD, but if that's the case, who doesn't have that in my generation? Um, but I'm getting off on a tangent. I only have 5 books here that I have read in the new year, but they're all things that I took quite a bit away from, I think, and 3 of them are rereads, which I'm happy about. To come back to something that I read in the past. The first one is a biography. It is Anthony Everett's Cicero. It's a biography of Marcus Tullius Cicero. He was a Roman statesman during the period uh, where Rome went from a republic to a empire. Uh, Cicero started his life out as a he didn't come from a noble background, uh, and rose through the ranks in Roman politics. He was a uh, essentially an attorney, uh, and he defended people by crafting immaculate speeches to defend or prosecute, actually, why a person did or did not commit a certain crime. Uh, and he published those uh, those speeches. I actually have a collection of his speeches from murder trials that I do want to read in the near future. Uh, he also published a lot of philosophy and published some poetry, which as far as I know, we do not have. We do have the philosophy, and we have his speeches, and we have letters. Letters that he wrote to his friend Atticus. Um, that are you come across his letters a lot in this book, where he opens up about his fears and his insecurities. Uh, Atticus was his best friend, and a remarkable way to get to know the author, the figure. Um, and we had so much of that, so luckily those primary sources litter this book. Um, and I do definitely really want to read more of Cicero in the future. He kind of hit his pinnacle, though, uh, uh, when he became consul, and then afterwards, I would say he kind of had a decline in how much influence he had. Became an elder statesman, participated as a influential, as an influencer, I guess, in two separate civil wars. First between Caesar and Pompey and the Senate, and then between Marcus Augustus. Sorry, not Marcus Augustus. Augustus Octavius, and alongside Mark Antony and Lepidus, and against Cassius and Brutus and the people who killed Julius Caesar, and ultimately lost his life when he was assassinated on the order of the three former men, the Mark Antony, Augustus, and Lepidus. This book does a good job at giving you some of the key ideas about the transfer from Rome as a republic to an empire. Some of the reasons why it happened. The different kinds of power and how power worked in Rome at this time. And does also give you a good idea of Cicero as a person, I think. I do think the author is a little bit eager to forgive Cicero on some of his reaches of power, particularly when he was a consul, particularly when he was dealing with a kind of a crisis of government where there were a few series of rebellions, but also his willingness to saddle up at times with people who were dubious, like Caesar and like what was his name? The first triumvirate. It was Pompey, Caesar, and my brain's I'm forgetful at the moment. So, my point is, I think there are times where Cicero, from my reading of this one book, I have not read more than this one book on Cicero, but from my reading on this one book, he deserves more criticism. And I think the author was a little bit eager to forgive and make you like Cicero. And maybe those particular actions deserved more in-depth criticism. But I'm going to have to read more on Cicero, more biographies, more primary sources, more histories of the time, in order to make a decision on whether that's truly the case. So, that's the first book I read this year. And I actually started that at the beginning of last year, but I'm still going to count it. Second book I read this year was Beowulf by Seamus Heaney, or rather translated by Seamus Heaney, written by an anonymous poet. I believe it was around about 980 or 1080, somewhere around there. Based on older oral stories, though. I have read this before. I think it was the Seamus Heaney translation, but it was many years ago, and it was in a textbook. But I did remember liking it at the time, and I did like it this time. My favorite part of it is actually the kind of the juxtaposition between the pagan aspects of the story and the Christian aspects. I also love the ending. That ending hits a lot harder now. With Beowulf alone, fighting the dragon, and then dying. And the story ends with a very somber note of fear. The fact that very soon the Geats will be invaded by the Swedes, and no, I really enjoyed this. I do definitely want to reread this in the near future again to get more out of it. But I did really very much enjoy it. Another reread, actually 3 out of 5 of these are rereads, was Six and Lose, The Free Body Problem. This is the only one in this trilogy that I've read so far. I do want to continue the trilogy, though. This is a very famous book. It's science fiction. It is it's Chinese science fiction about most people who are watching this video have probably already read it or know enough about it. But it's an alien invasion story, basically. A first contact story. And also a virtual reality story. And that last part, I think, is actually the of those concepts. The part of the book that doesn't work the best. I think I have problems with this book. I do enjoy this book, and I think this book, as you go further in it, I was kind of able to ignore my problems with it and focus on just the suspense of what's going on, what's the answer to the mystery, even though I knew the answer to the mystery already. And some of the concepts are also pretty fun. Some of the concepts, though, I think are kind of dumb. I don't like the virtual reality aspect, for starters. I don't particularly see why a virtual reality game would be the method of choice in order for the antagonists of the book to do the things they want to do. I just don't see it. And this isn't a cyberpunk book. It's not. It's not writing cyberpunk books, so another glaring area of I've not read a lot in that area. So I can't really compare it to anything, but it doesn't feel like cyberpunk. My other problems with this book, a couple of my other problems with this book, the dialogue is atrocious. It's really bad. The characters are also bad. The main character in the book has a family, a wife and a son, whose entire purpose in the book is to snap pictures from a camera during one scene. And they don't have any other lines, which is fine. They're not the main character, but the main character never shows any kind of indication that he has family aside from that one scene. And it seems like everyone's like that way. You never get substantial emotional development of any of the real characters in this book. Again, I did enjoy reading it from that suspense aspect and be like, ooh, what's going to happen next? But it's a bad book. It kind of is. It's poorly written, and it's I am going to continue it. I do actually really deeply want to see where the concepts go. Particularly the concepts of the alien civilization and their relationship to Earth. But just the character depth and the writing and the dialogue of this book is just very, very poor, unfortunately. Luckily, this next one, that's not the case. The next one I read was actually my first Agatha Christie novel, and then there were none. Read this month in March, with the idea being that it was for March Mystery Madness, but also because a friend wanted me to read this book. And I loved this. This is, so far, my favorite book out of all 5 of these, I think. And curiously enough, I don't really think it's so much of it is a murder mystery. It's a series of murder mysteries. I guess I should tell you what it's about. It's about a group of people who all go to an island for a party, and they find out that their host is not there, and they've all been convicted by the host of murder. One form or other of murder. And they're trying to figure out what's going on, how to get away, And also, who's killing people because people start dying? I really like this book. My favorite part of it is that, although it is a murder mystery, I think the point of the book is less on figuring out the mystery and more on the psychology of the characters. It feels like a Poe story, or like Shirley Jackson. One of my favorite books is Shirley Jackson, The Haunting of the Hill House. And it feels similar to this, in my opinion, where it's a psychological study of these characters, particularly of Vera, the main character. She's a school teacher, and everyone is convicted at the beginning. So it's not. I don't want to give away this book much, but I will tell you what she's convicted of, because it's in like the third chapter. She's convicted by this host, who's hidden. He's communicating through a gramophone of the murder of a child. And you have some flashbacks where the child did drown, and she was there, and she couldn't save him. And the way the book builds, the way that Agatha Christie builds on the ways these characters feel guilt, or don't feel guilt, and the way their guilt and their levels of conscience, or their levels of culpability differ, is really, really good. I really love it. I really love that psychological aspect of this book. Definitely want to read more Agatha Christie. It feels weird that I've never read Agatha Christie before. But I definitely, in this year, I plan to read some more Agatha Christie. And then finally, last one, and this also is a reread, after watching the recent Dune movie, I chose to reread Dune Messiah. I've so far only read Dune and Dune Messiah. I read Dune first back in 2020. It was the year when the movie was released, so 2020, 2021, I can't remember. And then read Messiah a few months after. I reread the first Dune last year, around August, with Brandy at the Booklectic, and loved it a lot more than when I read it the first time. Part of that was coming back from having read this and seeing the clear so I don't want to spoil this book for those who've only read Dune or have only seen the Dune movie, but the basic gist of Dune Messiah is this takes place after the first Dune book, after Paul has solidified his power. Paul Atreides. And this shows his downfall. And there's a lot of foreshadowing in Dune to stuff that happens in Dune Messiah, or has happened after, or actually happened between Dune and Dune Messiah. I liked this less than I did the first time, whereas I liked Dune more than I did the first time. I do think the ending of this book is masterful. I love the ending. I love the pathos of the ending. And I love the Paul chapters. Again, the pathos is really part of it that I love. I love Paul's anxiety and fear and sorrow over what has happened in his life. There's a really interesting question that kind of runs throughout this book and throughout Dune of free will. Is Paul truly free? He can see the future, but how much can he change it? If he sees the same future, no matter what he does, or if the only thing they can change is tiny, minute things, can he truly be free? And what impact do other people and all the people around him, not just the high society figures, not just the politicians or the Bene Gesserit and his family, but also just the workings of everyone across the universe. People getting swept up in mob actions, like with the Jihad. How do all these things impact Paul being able to choose what he wants to do. And a question that runs throughout the book and that leads to some very heady philosophical chapters that are sometimes very difficult to parse through. I like those, but I also do. There were times where I was extremely confused about what was going on. There's also a lot of political conspiracy in this book. And again, some of that is also confusing, especially because you don't really know what the planning is behind some actions that happen and some conversations that happen. I also hate the sex. This book has a lot of sexual stuff in it that I think is not needed and or creepy, unfortunately. But the ending of this is phenomenal. I really love the ending of this. This book also loses a few things from the first Dune. It loses some of the scope, I think. This really is a much more of a tense political thriller with aspects that are spiritual or philosophical, as opposed to a grand hero's journey action adventure with aspects of political conspiracy and spiritual philosophical undertones. I do plan to continue the series. I have not yet read Children of Dune. Sorry, I have not yet read Children of Dune, but I plan to in the near future, probably in the next couple of months, and then I'd like to continue on with the series. So that is the books that I've read in the new year. I would say of them, In Number None was definitely my favorite, probably followed up by Dune Messiah. The Free Body Problem is my least favorite, but I will also continue. All 5 of those I will continue with. If it was something that I didn't love, I probably would have dropped it. So, stuff I'm reading right now. Larry Niven's Ringworld. I'm actually not reading this edition. I'm actually listening to an audiobook of this, but I have an edition of it, so I figured I'd show it. I am about 4 chapters in. I started listening to this while at work one day, just needing something to listen to while I reset the dining room at my work. And this is basically a science fiction adventure story about a bunch of characters, humans and some aliens, who go to a ring world. Very similar in a lot of ways to the Halo space station from the Halo video game series. I'm very much enjoying this so far, or enjoying the audiobook so far. I love the description of the alien species. The Pearson's puppeteers especially are so cool. They're like these 2-headed aliens that are their heads are on stalks, and they have free legs, and when they sit down they bend one leg backwards to sit on it. And there's one eye on each of their heads. Very cool. The other one is a Kazink, I think, and it's a big tiger creature basically. But I'm enjoying it. Interesting enough, when I was looking on Audible for what I was going to read, I initially chose The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I started listening to that. I really loved the opening introduction by Ursula K. Le Guin about science fiction in general, and then I listened to the first part of the very beginning of chapter 1, and I could not continue it because the writer's accent, along with the vocabulary, the made-up vocabulary of the story, made it impossible for me to actually hear what was being said. So I would like to read that in the future, but this was a lot easier to listen to. And a lot of that is just because of the author's writing style and because of the narrator's speaking style. I have a hard time hearing, so I really need something where I can listen and not have to focus my ears so much. I'm also reading City by Clifford D. Simak. Uh, this is part of a reading event by Sean D. Standfast. I think it's the Year of Simak. I think that because I've really not been a part of that. I joined a Voxer group for it and wanted to read this and then didn't take part in it at all. I just recently started reading this. I read the first story and I love it. I love this first story. I should say I've actually have read the first story in this before, and I've read the second story in this before. But I do plan to continue reading it and get caught up and try to take part in the remainder of that event, both reading this and reading the future Simak books that Sean D. Standfast choose. But on the first story, it's essentially a near future relative to when it was written. It's, I think, set in like the 90s. And there are the Earth is no longer it's people are no longer really required to post scarcity. There we go. I was trying to that was the word I was trying to think of, and my brain forgot everything. It's a post scarcity society, and so people don't really have to stay in cities anymore, and they are leaving cities and going out and buying vast acres of land that has been sold dirt cheap because the farms aren't needed anymore. Any food can be grown in a lab. And it's just this very small story about a few different characters who are living in the city. Some squatters who are living in a like the rundown houses. The city board and the one of the members of the city board and his family, and there's conflict brewing because the city board and the police chief want to burn the houses where the squatters are living because they're not paying taxes and it's becoming an eyesore. And I really, really like it. What I've read of Clifford D. Simak, I have really liked. And I know the next story in this is The Huddling Place, which I've read twice so far. I read it for the first time, like, end of last year when I started to read this for a different occasion, just because. And then I read it during the end of 2022 for New Wolf November. And I'm really looking forward to rereading it and continuing it. Final book, and getting away from science fiction, I'm reading right now is To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. I'm reading this with a friend from India. I kind of got the idea to start buddy reading together, and after I told him the books that I had in my collection, he chose this one. This is the second Virginia Woolf book I will have read when I finish it. The first one being Orlando. I am loving this. I fucking love this book so much. It's so beautifully written. I'm only about 7 chapters in, but it is just gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. What it's about, it's about a family who's going to go to a lighthouse, and this family has a bunch of retainers that kind of live around them. They're all going to go to this lighthouse, but they might not go to the lighthouse, and that seems to be the main conflict right now, which is, are they going to go to the lighthouse or aren't they? But that's not what it's about. It's about these characters' like inner worlds and what they're feeling and all the complicated aspects of what they're feeling about each other and about themselves and about everything. And it's written in a very stream of consciousness style writing where the world around them and the world inside of them kind of blends together. And it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. This, I highly figure, will probably be my favorite book that I am going to be reading in the foreseeable future. But Again, I'm only 70 chapters in, so I want to continue this. Probably will be continuing this and continuing this tonight, actually. So yeah, that went on for way too long. But let me know what you've been reading. Anyways, bye, BookTube.